and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Hey, Kit Cabello, I'll gladly be on your show if you give me $20. Hey, Kit, interview me so I could be on your show for like, I don't know, just give me like $50, man. I could use some of that money, man. Give me that money, man. Now, maybe some of you are wondering, why are you talking like that, Kit? Why are you making a statement like that? Well, because something hilarious happened. So this is going to be like a two-part kind of story. The first part is, Jon Stewart going after Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson was talking about what was like grocery shopping in Moscow. Okay, fine, buddy. You want to talk about what was like grocery shopping in Moscow? All right. So, I mean, because the reason why things are so expensive here in America, why our subways suck, is because that's the price of freedom. The real truth is why things are so expensive, why our infrastructure is falling apart, why our subways suck, why our whole transportation system sucks, is because all of our money is going to unending war. But that's the price of freedom, forever war. Okay. But why am I also bringing up the fact of, hey, somebody wants you to pay them money to be interviewed on your show? Well, that hasn't happened to me yet. But Tucker Carlson talks about how Boris Johnson wanted to talk to him, but for like $1 million. What? Let's play this video. I want to laugh. I want to laugh, gosh darn it. And I'm going to.
So I'm over in Moscow. I'm waiting to do this interview. It gets out that we're doing it. And I'm immediately denounced by this guy called Boris Johnson, who was for a short time the prime minister of Great Britain. And Boris Johnson calls me a tool of the Kremlin or something. And I'm thinking, well, his name's not actually Boris, as I'm sure you know. His name is Alex Johnson. Right. Called himself Boris in high school. So the guy who calls himself Boris is accusing me? So I was annoyed. So I put in a request for an interview with Boris Johnson, as I have many times, because he's constantly denouncing me as a tool of the Kremlin. He says no. So I'm thinking about getting more annoyed. So I know a lot of people who know Boris Johnson. So I reach out to them. Finally, one of his advisors gets back to me and says, he will talk to you, but it's going to cost you $1 million.
Man, that is the dumbest thing. Oh, I need. Hey, give me $1 million. Boris, buddy, pal. If that's your real name, you're going to run by a nickname from high school. What's wrong with you? Boris, you hurting for cash? Why do you need $1 million, baby? What you need that money for, Boris? Hair supply? You need to get in contact with your hairstylist or something? All you gotta do is just do a nice little shampoo, take care of your hair, and boom, you'll be glorious like me. Why do you need $1 million, Boris? What are you doing?
He wants $1 million.
What?
In US dollars, gold, or Bitcoin. No, this just happened yesterday or 2 days ago. And
that's another thing. I had to spit out my coffee, literally, just recently. So that offer was given to him recently. Damn, Boris, don't you know about personal finance? Doing a budget? Why do you need $1 million? How'd you come up with that number? I got to be like Tony Soprano when he was trying to get information on Ralphie from his sister Janice, and she gave him a number, and he was like, "Okay." Now, how'd you come up with that number? That's what Tony said to Janice. How'd you come up with that number?
And I'm like, he wants $1 million. Yeah. And then he will talk to you about Ukraine. He will explain his position on Ukraine and explain what. So he attacks me without explaining how I'm wrong, of course, or how he's right. This is, by the way, the guy who single-handedly, at the request of the U.S. government, stopped the peace deal in Ukraine 1.5 years ago, and is, I think, for that reason, responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. He won't explain any of that to me in an interview until I pay him $1 million. And I said to the guy, I just interviewed Vladimir Putin. I'm not defending Putin, but Putin didn't ask for $1 million.
When Putin has the high ground, you lost. Like, Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister of Great Britain, a democracy in the European hemisphere. And he asked for $1 million. Putin, the evil bad guy, woogie boogie boogie. He did it for free. For free.
So you're telling me that Boris Johnson is a lot sleazier, a lot lower than Vladimir Putin.
Okay.
which is true.
Yeah.
So this whole thing is a freaking shakedown. Why $60 billion? I mean, I could get boring on this because I've learned a lot about it. But $60 billion is not going to allow Ukraine to prevail over Russia. No honest person thinks that's going to work. This is a money laundering operation. A lot of the people involved in it are making money from it. And if you're making money off a war, you can deal with God on that, because that's really immoral. Like, that's actually really, really wrong. And a lot of people are, including Boris Johnson.
It's kind of funny, but hang on, just a little bit more. So look, Boris Johnson. So American journalist Tucker Carlson says former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson would only agree to an interview if he received $1 million fee. Why you need that money, baby? He made the claim following his high-profile interview with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Speaking to Blaze TV founder Glenn Beck. Hey, Glenn, good to see you around here still, buddy. For an interview that aired on Tuesday, Carlson contrasted his experience interviewing Putin with attempts to sit down with Johnson, who has slammed the former Fox host as a tool of the Kremlin. Ooh la la, the creme de la creme. So, okay. So Johnson was highly critical of Carlson's, because I'm not going to read the rest of this because this was quoted in the video. So anyways, Johnson, who was highly critical of Carlson's 2-hour sit down with Putin, penning a scathing op-ed for the Daily Mail soon after the interview aired. When Tucker Carlson went to the Kremlin, he had a function well known to history. He was to be the stooge of the tyrant, the dictatorphone to the dictator, and a traitor to journalism, Johnson wrote, adding that Carlson has failed to press Putin on Russia's military operation in Ukraine. Carlson's interview was similarly condemned by a range of Western leaders and commentators, although that comes as no surprise, who accused him of asking the Russian leader only softball questions for allowing Putin to give lengthy responses without interruption. Asked why he hadn't raised certain topics during the World Government Summit in Dubai earlier this month, Carlson said he wanted to do the interview because he was interested in Putin's worldview and did not wish to inject himself into the discussion. The journalist also explained that he wanted to talk to Putin because the U.S. were lying and because the American public was ill-informed about the conflict in Ukraine. Look, I'm just going to give my perspective and analysis on this, and that is Tucker can conduct his interview any which way he wants. It's his show, and he could do whatever he wants. So Western journalists, Jon Stewart, and all you other lovely people, go ahead and talk to Putin. You could pull it off. If you're a heavy hitter, if you're the big boss people, you go on there and you're flying down, you speak to Putin. Go ahead. Just don't bring any Super Bowl ring. Don't be afraid. Go ahead. Talk to Putin. Do it yourselves. Show Tucker Carlson how it's done. That goes for everybody across the spectrum. Go ahead. Do it. Go there. If you know better, if you're ready for a one-on-one confrontation with Putin, you go there. And before you say, oh, we can't talk to Putin because we're at war, or, oh, I'm not going to do that because that's not right. Well, geez Louise, we had journalists interview far worse people than Putin. We've had journalists interview serial killers, assaulters, other tyrants and dictators and warlords. And we've had, yes, in the past, people interview Putin on MSNBC, CNN. So they've all done it before. This is nothing new. If everyone's so triggered by what Tucker Carlson did, and if you think you could do a better job interviewing Putin and really holding his feet to the fire, you go down there. You go down there if you got the nerve, boys and girls. You go down there if you got what it takes. If you got the spine. Go ahead and do it. Show Tucker Carlson how it's done. Continuing on, though, American intelligence services had the assistance of the New York Times in an apparent bid to stop Tucker Carlson from interviewing Russian President Vladimir Putin, the journalist has claimed. The former Fox News host explained on Tuesday to Blaze TV founder Glenn Beck that he believes he was spied on before meeting the Russian leader earlier this month. Carlson recalled how some years ago, the U.S. government learned about his attempts to organize an interview with Putin and leaked it to the press. In the years since, he said he has learned how one can communicate outside the view of state actors. The Russian government granted him a sit-down with Putin on a strict condition that plans for the interview would not become public or the entire thing would be called off, the journalist told Beck. Nonetheless, he and a friend of his were then called by the New York Times reporters asking when his Putin interview will happen. There's no way they could have known that. I didn't tell anybody. My wife, my producers, not even my kids. They clearly did it again. They leaked it to the New York Times in an effort to scuttle the interview. Original claims by Carlson that the U.S. government was working behind closed doors to stop him from interviewing Putin came in 2021. He said a source cited to him his private communications related to an effort to organize one. Carlson suggested the U.S. National Security Agency, NSA, must have spied on him. By the way, hi, Bill. Hi, Bob. Say hello to your wives for me. Those are my NSA handlers, Bill and Bob. Hey, what's up, guys? I love you. What are you going to get me for today? I want a present. The agency responded with a rare public denial, stating that for the NSA, he has never been an intelligence target. Hey, let's have democracy in the chat. Do you believe the NSA's statement right here that they're not spying in on Tucker Carlson? Type 1 for Kit. This is a national security agency. The NSA is doing everything they can to protect Americans. You awful, awful man. How dare you? Type 2, no, man, they got a profile on him. They got a profile on me. They got a profile on you. They got a profile even on your cute little dog. I don't own a dog, but if I did, they probably have a profile on that little dog too. I wonder how many 2s we'll get in the chat. I wonder. So now let's bring in here good old Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart. All right, Jon Stewart on Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin, an ally to the right. Woo! All right, see now, I like that first episode where, Johnny Boy was calling out how Biden and Trump are two old men. But now, Tucker is a stooge for Putin. He's a Russian puppet. Johnny Boy. I really can't wait for this election to play out throughout the rest of the election cycle, man. It's going to be great. All the crazy stuff that's happening. While other late night hosts were off for President's Day, Jon Stewart once again resumed his chair at The Daily Show to defend his monologue about Joe Biden's age and talk Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin. Now's the time to deflect because so many liberals got triggered because he said that Joe Biden's old and senile. The Daily Show. Jon Stewart opened his monologue on The Daily Show, his second since returning on Mondays through the election to defend his first, in which he expressed voter concerns over Joe Biden's age and mental fitness. You never have to defend that. You were correct in that assessment. I say that Joe Biden's old and senile all the time. And if that triggers people, well, call somebody who gives a damn. Old man Biden doesn't have what it takes, and neither does Kamala the Cop Harris, okay? They just don't have what it takes, baby. So continuing on. So let's go forward from here. You say again, Democrats such as former. Oh my God! I forgot this was in the article. So apparently Keith Olbermann, remember that guy? The guy who just yells at a camera now, who called him a both-sided fraud. Keith, shush. Take your medicine, baby. But that was on Twitter. Everything's on Twitter. Gets backlash, said Stewart. I've seen Twitter tell Labradoodles to go F themselves. Okay, whatever. I just think it's better to deal head on with what's an apparent issue to people. I guess the famous saying goes, democracy dies in discussion, he joked. I sinned against you. Never say I'm sorry. Why would you say I'm sorry? Don't apologize. It's like Tony's advice to Ralph. Don't apologize, goofy. It was never my intention to say out loud what I saw with my eyes, then brain. I can do better. I can have learning. Stewart then transitioned, because he had to deflect. Ding, 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 ding. Then transitioned to his main segment of the night on the former Fox News host, the evil man himself, the Putin puppet, the extreme right-winger, the guy who will be the mouthpiece for the Trump administration, Tucker Carlson, woogie boogie boogie, with the Russian president. Okay, so obviously his interview with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, offering a lesson in world-class fealty to power. Step 1, lie about what your job is, not journalism, as Carlson claimed, and what your duty is, not to inform people either, as Carlson claimed. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. Disguise your deception, capitulation to power as noble and moral and based in freedom. None of that happened. Look, Jon Stewart, you've been in this business longer than I have. If you think you could do a better job, go interview Putin. Go down there. Do it. If you are the heavyweight champion and you've been in this business so long, go ahead and do it. Show Tucker Carlson how it's done. You get all the questions that you want, have the interview as long as you want, and interview Putin. Have at it, Hoss. Have at it. In the on-location report from Moscow, Carlson praised the city's Art Deco subway stations. Yeah, they were actually pretty nice. And the efficiency of its grocery stores, reacting to fresh baked bread. Yeah, it's nice. With such enthusiasm that I'd hate to think what would happen if he had found a bagel, said Stewart. That's a low. That's funny, but that's not family friendly. And he spoke to Putin with a facial expression Stewart could only describe as a mixture of shame, arousal, and I'm going to say it, irregularity, for instance, like you're constipated while jerking off to a Sears catalog. Sears catalog. See, now, as a millennial, as an older millennial, I know what you're referencing, but like that's an old joke. Like even young people don't know what a Sears catalog is. Hell, is Sears or JCPenney still around? Because I think they went belly up. Same thing like with Kmart. Like they're gone. A Sears catalog. It's funny. I mean, I get it. But you got to maybe spice it up for today's modern day audience. Just a little bit, you know. So Carlson claimed the experience of shopping for weekly groceries for $104 radicalized him against U.S. leaders. It'll radicalize you unless you understand basic economics, Stewart corrected. You see, $104 for groceries sounds like a great bargain unless you realize the Russians earn less than $200 a week. There's also a lot of sanctions. Sanctions are just stupid because it only hurts the people. You think it hurts the government? No. Here's the reality. You effing know all of this because you aren't as dumb as your face would have us believe. Perhaps if your handlers had allowed. Tucker Carlson has handlers? He runs his own show. He does whatever he wants. You would have seen that there's a hidden fee to your cheap groceries and orderly streets. Just go ask good old Alexei, right? That guy. In recent days, Russian state police have cracked down on pro-democracy protesters. Are they, though? Are they really? The difference between our urinal-caked, chaotic subways and your beautiful subways is the literal price of freedom. Okay. Price of freedom. Okay, so freedom is I have rundown infrastructure, paying for unnecessary wars, kids going in cages, the prison industrial complex, our politicians being bought and paid off, but it's all for my freedom. It seems to me that we're kind of getting a screwed end deal here. I mean, just ask my audience. Just ask my viewers and subscribers how this economy is treating us. Hey, how's the price of freedom treating all of you when you're watching this show? How's it treating you? Type 1 for it's great, Kit. It's a sacrifice that must be done. Because, yes, the subways might smell like urine, but at least we're free. Type 2, man, this is a struggle. I don't even know how I'm going to get by. The price of freedom isn't worth it. Because all our money goes to war anyways. So there we go. So what can we take away from this? Well, first of all, Boris, Britain's ex-prime minister, needs that money. He needs that cash money, and desperately. He needs that money because, you know, maybe he's not financially stable. And number two, people are still jealous about Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin. And as for handlers, how could Tucker Carlson have handlers when he runs his own show? When he runs his own program? I mean, the Daily Show is still owned by a corporation, John. So that means you got handlers. Now, maybe you have more freedom than any of the other hosts previously, but even at the end of the day, you have handlers. That's how it works in corporate media. I find it pathetic that the reason why we have to accept things the way they are, why things are falling apart, is because freedom. Freedom, 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 freedom. What is freedom? Because right now we're witnessing the fact that a man named Julian Assange could be extradited here, and free speech, expression, and so much more will be put on a chopping block. I mean, here we are at democracy calling for a journalist to be extradited, possibly facing a death penalty or 175 years behind bars. There's another whistleblower, first name Edward, last name Snowden, who informed us that we're being spied in on by our government agencies and intel services. I mean, that's the price of freedom. Every time people want to post stuff on social media, there's a worry about being hit by the censorship, by being shadow banned. I mean, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, now called X, do that. See, I'm not afraid of Tucker Carlson interviewing Putin. What I am afraid of is our corporate media spilling out fake news to the people and telling them that they're free when we're not. When we have our politicians being bought off by lobby groups and corporations. These politicians aren't writing laws to defend us or protect our freedoms. They're writing laws so they can enrich themselves and their donors. Why do you think we have so many wars? Because it's a good racket. That's why our infrastructure is falling apart. That's why our cities are crumbling. That's why our water is being contaminated, because there's no money to help the people. That's the price of freedom. That means you're not free.